Strong winds, a hint of rain, closed roads, lots of music. Where else could we be but the springtime here in Belgium? Hi everybody, Phil Liggett along with Paul Sherwin. Well, just a few days ago, the Tour of Flanders was won by the world champion Tom Bonen. He has, as one newspaper said, ascended into paradise. He's the absolute superstar now, Paul. But this one, Ghent Wevelgem, may not be his cup of tea.
Well, the difficult thing for all the top hitters here at the race this afternoon is this race is sandwiched between the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. A lot of them want to win, but they don't really want to expend all that much energy because Paris-Roubaix is the next big one for them.
Well, it's a familiar route. It's 210 kilometers. That's about 130 miles. And we climb the Kemmelberg, this cobblestone climb, twice. It's usually there where the breakaway goes.
It normally is. It's a real split-up race when we get down to that part of the world, and especially the two ascensions of the Kemmel really does tend to force a breakaway, as it has done over the last couple of years. It'll be interesting to see whether Alessandro Petacchi will get a little bit of revenge, because he had promised he was going to win the Tour of Flanders. Well, he was a long way from doing that.
All right, well, the warm-up act is almost finished here. The riders will be coming out of the cars very soon, so let's go and chat to one or two of them.
Strange race, isn't it, Henk, because it's in between Flanders and Roubaix, but it's a race that everybody wants to win, and you've been pretty close in the past.
Yeah, it's one of my ambitions for the year. I've been training many kilometres for it. After Roubaix, obviously, you're not after Flanders, you're not obviously recovered fully, but it's a race here that the real big team leaders sort of play off a little bit, because they have to train on Wednesday anyway if they want to win on Sunday. So, you know, the guys who are sort of the semi-classic riders can really, you know, step up here on Wednesday and try and win today.
In the past, we always used to regard this as a sprinter's race, races for Abdou-Japarov, Cipollini, but now, over the last few years, it's always been decided by a breakaway.
Yeah, it has a lot in the past, and it's very difficult, and also you remember it's 210 kilometres still, and 2 times over the Kemmelberg, and there's not much wind here, but there's always going to be wind on the coast at the famous De Muren, where it always breaks and 30 guys go away. So I expect that to happen today, and if it comes back, there is a chance it'll come back, but for me, I think the strongest man will win and ride away for the final.
Peter van Petegem not riding today, saving himself for Paris-Roubaix at the weekend. Does that give you a little bit more freedom?
Yeah, there's no real cop man in our team, so there's 8 guys in our team today who are going to take the chance, and I'll take mine.
Pretty rough start to the season, but it's nice that the weather's changed for the Ghent Wevelgem here.
Yeah, it's certainly turned the day on so far. It's solely a bit of sun this morning, so we're going to see how long that lasts. I think it's going to rain.
Well, we hope it doesn't. How's your man Thor Hushoff? Because he seems to be riding. He was pretty strong at the weekend.
Yeah, he's certainly in good form. He's probably not in the top form yet, but I think for Paris-Roubaix, he's definitely going to be on the podium.
And what about a race like this for you, because you've got quite a nice little turn of speed at the end?
Yeah, this kind of race that opens up the chances for me, so they've given me a bit of a wild card today, so I can have a bit of a dig in the end and not give everything to Tour like I did on Tour of Flanders, so hopefully I can be there.
Good luck, we hope to see you on the telly.
Thanks a lot.
Good luck, mate.
Thanks.
One of my best wins ever in my career.
Well, it must be always a little bit nervous for you when you come up here to Ghent Wevelgem as a former winner.
Yeah, it's true. It's there's some special feelings and some kind of emotion going through my head. That's true.
It's one of those races that a lot more riders have a chance of winning than races like the Tour of Flanders or Paris-Roubaix, and you must be feeling pretty confident with the team around you.
Yeah, our team, the Team CSC, is going strong this year. For the race today, I must say, when I was younger, I was more motivated than I am today. Today, my thoughts are okay for Ghent Wevelgem, but they are already looking forward to Paris-Roubaix.
It seems to be a lot of riders the same. They're looking at this race as maybe preparation for Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, it's true. Paris-Roubaix is a different race, and for riders who love Paris-Roubaix, it's important also to participate today and test themselves. So, yeah, it's the one big important week. Flanders, Ghent Wevelgem, Paris-Roubaix will always be one big important week. Good luck. Thank you.
You always seem happy when you come to races like this.
Yeah, I like these races. So
important week for your team with Tom Bonen winning Tour of Flanders and now looking forward to Paris-Roubaix. A lot of responsibility for a man like you.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hard week, but with a rider like Tom, every race is important. So every time we have to go for it. So it doesn't change much, but for the people, these races are more important. So.
It's interesting with Tom because he seems to turn around and he's quite happy sometimes to work for the team as well, as he did with Pozzato in Milan-San Remo.
Yeah, of course. I think that's the strength of Tom, and you see, as he wants to win, then everybody is working for him. Double. So
does he want to win today?
I think so. Yeah. Okay.
Pretty good performance last weekend in the Tour of Flanders, but this is the kind of race where you must be thinking about winning.
Yeah, it is. Last Sunday I was in good shape, I had good legs, and I know this is a good race for me, so yeah, I hope to win it.
It's a difficult race because it's, over the past few years, been dominated by a breakaway of 10 or 15 or 20 riders.
Yeah, I mean, in this race it's flat, it's always windy, and we have to be careful for the crosswinds. And then we had Kemmerberg 50k to go, and some years this happened up there. And
Did you see your friend Dagote Lauritsen at Tour of Flanders? He was out for the Norwegian TV.
Yeah, he was. I spoke with him in the morning, and I know that was his favorite race. He was third there once, and I hope to beat him once.
Well, maybe today as well, because he never won this race.
Yeah, true. Maybe today I can beat him. Yeah. Thanks.
Can't believe, Eric, that this is going to be the last season, because we've talked about you for so many years.
Yeah, well, a lot of riders and people they tell me, and when I'm riding good, like the last couple of 4 or 5 weeks, they say you're not going to stop. But I hope that they will say it until the Tour of Lombardia.
I heard you saying a little bit earlier that the Koppenberg of the weekend in the Tour of Flanders was the easiest you've ever been up it.
Yeah, I had to walk, so I didn't feel anything in my legs. I have to say, 2 days later I had pain in my muscles because of the running there. But no, it's very spectacular to watch, but it's not the way we do modern cycling, I think.
No, but at the end of the day, this is a good race for you. Aggressive rider, and you'll be looking for the moves.
It's all about good legs, of course, but also about the motivation, and the motivation is pretty good. I was not on the program, but I asked after the Tour of Flanders that I could ride this race, so it's not because I had to, but I really want to do this race.
That's good. We'll follow you on the TV.
I got some complaints from the hotel management at the Brule that you guys were out rowdy, drinking a lot last night.
Actually, it was we were led astray a little bit.
Called, you know?
We were led astray a little bit by a guy by the name of Rich Hincapie.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
George had great legs at the weekend. Didn't come up with the win that you were looking for. Between Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix, can you ride this race to win?
My main focus is Sunday, Roubaix. But at the same time, if I see the opportunity, I'm not going to let it slip by. I feel strong, and I can definitely recover from a hard effort in 3 days. So if I see the chance, I'll take it. But really, my main focus is for Sunday.
It's also a very risky race, this, because there's always a lot of accidents, and you want to make sure that you don't get involved in any of those.
Yeah, exactly. It's very dangerous. So I'm just going to stay at the front and try to stay away from the danger. But sometimes the danger is even at the front. So you need a lot of luck, and hopefully I have that.
You wouldn't like to give a victory to your brother, because your brother tells us that he's not going to be here for Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, I know. He's going back home, but he was excited about me just being here. So he'll be watching it on TV on OLN.
Right, thanks, George.
All right, Paul. Thanks.
A couple of questions?
Just a quick.
Okay, Tom, it's always difficult to concentrate for Ghent Wevelgem when it's sandwiched in between the two classics, Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix. Have you been able to do that today?
Concentration is one thing and recovery is the second. So I think it's hard to be very, very good against Wevelgem just 2 days after the Tour of Flanders, especially after what we did last Sunday. It was a pretty hard race, and but I'm feeling okay. I was still a little bit tired yesterday, and also this morning I wasn't very fresh, but I think I will be there in the final, and then we'll see.
Difficult for a man like you, because being in Belgium, it was such a huge thing for the country. You must have had the telephone ringing off the hook.
No, it was quite okay. I got a private number, so that makes a big difference. And then we decided not to do the press conference on Monday, but yesterday. So Monday and Tuesday were quite okay, and then just last night I arrived in the hotel, did a little press conference, and it was a lot better than last year actually.
Well, good luck today.
Thank you.
Well done on Sunday.
Thanks.
Nice race. You're almost a local here. I mean, we're not actually in Ghent, but you're a local boy, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was born sort of 30k away, so yeah, I suppose you could say I'm a local, but very much an Englishman these days. So.
Change of teams for you. How are you fitting in with the new squad?
Yeah, it's good. It's I've been around the French teams now, so this is the third team for me. But I'm enjoying it. It's a lot more relaxed, and they're behind what I want to do this year, which is the main thing. I really want to target specific things this year, as opposed to trying to compete week in, week out with these boys. So.
What about a race like Ghent Wevelgem, though? It is the kind of race that you've got a chance of winning.
It is. It's much more suited to me. There's obviously less climbs than the Flanders. Flanders, you need a lot of luck as well, as well as the legs. But here, there's just a couple of decisive points in the race, mainly up on the coast at Ostend, where it could crosswind. So yeah, and he's much more suited to me, and I think to a lot of other guys. There's a lot of other guys here thinking that they got a chance today, whereas on Sunday they perhaps knew straight away that they weren't going to do anything. So,
what's your big goal for the season then? Prologue of the Tour?
Prologue of the Tour, yeah. 6k, and I'll be at home on Monday watching the rest of the 3 weeks on the telly. So.
And the flag waves, and they're underway. Big cheers from the crowds.
193 riders, 25 teams, and representing 32 different countries. Fairly international event here. The new race director, by the way, is Hans de Klerk, a former professional bike rider, and also on occasions a very good television commentator for the Flemish television station.
Nobody in any hurry to leave Deinzer here. One or two still dashing from the cars across the car park to join the back of the peloton. It's always a strange thing, but it happens in Belgium like that. Now, that was what happened earlier today. We're now going out onto the highway to join the live coverage. 81 kilometers to go. A gap of 1:25, and these two riders are Bernard Eisel of Française des Jeux, and he's a sprinter, so I'm a bit surprised to see him making a lone break here. Well, he's not quite alone. He's got Vladimir Gusev, the Russian member of the Discovery Channel team, and the people at Discovery reckon they're sitting on a real piece of talent here. He's only young, so he's giving his legs an early stretch today. We've still got the big circuits to come, and the two climbs of the Kemmelberg are ahead.
Well, they've got Poperanga behind them now, and they're actually heading down towards the area of the small mountains of Flanders. As you can see, Gusev, I think, definitely is a talent of the future. He's the national time trial champion of Russia, and he finished 10th in the Tour of Flanders last year, and he's a rider who I think in the future is going to be someone that they would like to develop. He's only 23 years of age.
Eisel here has got off to a great start this season. 3 victories already. Française des Jeux. And judging by the way we're going just now, we're picking up a nice slice of tailwind as we race away from the coast. There's the weather for you. 10 degrees or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Rather a chilly wind blowing today, and it feels a bit colder than that, but it is nice and sunny at the moment. There's the peloton.
Doesn't look very far, that gap, does it, at a stage like this? You can see the hills in the background, but everyone now in the main peloton starting to get just a little bit more nervous because they want to make sure they're in a good position once we come to the climbs. The first climb of the day is the climb that used to be known as the Black Mountain, the Mont Noir, but now it's called the Vidayenberg, and that will take the riders up to the start of a succession of climbs, including the Rodeberg, the Monteberg, and of course the very, very famous Kemmelberg.
Oh, seems an awkward place to stop the lead car there as they all went round him for some reason. I can only assume it's broken down, because I can't believe it would have parked in such a ridiculous place as that, Paul.
I know, it must have had a strange problem there. Maybe it was one of the brand new diesel Mercedes and somebody filled it up with petrol, because they don't like that.
A lot of riders now trying to get their team leaders into this front echelon. Very, very fast ride. Just look over the shoulders. You'll see those riders really struggling in the winds now.
Might have caught a glimpse there of the Japanese rider on the Team Discovery channel, Beppu Fumiyuki. He was over to the right-hand side. That's Hincapie in the middle in the dark blue jersey, looking nice and comfortable. And Martin Dembacke up alongside him. But this is how riders get shelled out in the crosswinds. If you're not locked onto the wheel of the man in front of you, that's it. You just cannot get any shelter at all from this wind, which in Belgium is unrelenting.
Well, just look at the way these groups have been picked off the back by the wind and by the high-speed tempo pacemaking of people like Sergei Ivanov. The gap is just running away now. It's down to 46 seconds. 74 kilometers to go, and all of the obstacles are still ahead of the race.
Yeah, we've got all of the climbs coming in just a 40-kilometer section of the race, and then once they've left the Kemmelberg for the last time, it's 40 kilometers to go down to the finishing town of Wevelgem, although it's not flat running because it still rolls around a lot before the riders get onto the main road, which leaves Ypres on the way to Wevelgem, right on the French border.
It's one of the riders here from the Skill Shimano set up on the front. They've had a wild cards into all of these events, not part of the Pro Tour teams, but they've rode with quite a lot of distinction here. They've got a couple of riders in this front echelon as well. Leon van Bon is there, champion of Holland.
Right up at the front end. I was talking to Henk Vogels just before the start, and he actually said that he's been given a bit of a free hand here this afternoon. Peter van Petegem not riding the event, saving himself for Paris-Roubaix at the weekend. And that's a sign in a breakaway that you don't want to see, isn't it? Because as soon as the neutral service car goes by, the riders in the breakaway know that the main field are not far behind. We're being told it's 45 seconds, but I would say, Phil, if they looked over their shoulders, it's probably down to about 30.
Tussen sprint, a little bit of a sprint here for a bit of cash. Nothing much more than that. Die Kleitje is where we are. 44 seconds, down to 43 as we speak. I think their plan was to try to get to the Kemmelberg and go forward with the next wave, but they might even be caught on the Rodeberg before we get to the Kemmel.
I'm pretty sure there'll be a big acceleration for the Vidayenberg, but going in now after they've left the Kleitje town on towards Loker, and then they will go into the small town of Westhouten. This area of Belgium is known as the Heuvelland. In fact, if you see in the distance there, that is actually the Kemmelberg they're going to, but they'll take a right-hand turn over the top of this little incline and then go in a circular route around the big mountains of the Mont Rouge and the Mont Noir before attacking the Vidayenberg over to the right-hand side.
No sprint there. Gusev gets the money. They're just trying to keep it away together here. There's the peloton now. There's a slight change of direction, you see, so they've bunched up again. Van Bon still working well in the dead center of the picture, the blue shorts on.
It's Nico Martin as well in second position as well. I wonder if he's thinking about getting the win the second time in a row. I think he finished second here a couple of years ago as well when he got away in the breakaway with his friend at that time, Frank van den Broeke. There's another rider with a little bit of difficulty there as they go over the Tussen Sprint, the sprint point here at the Kleitje. There you can see the lovely hills in this area as we get up towards the summit now of this small climb. The riders will take a right-hand turn in a moment and drop down into Westhout. A great area of the world for bike riding, especially if you can get a day when there's no wind, and that's not very often.
And not this year. This wind seems to have blown every day of the cycling season in Europe at the moment, and it's been quite chilly. It's not really spring-like, although the weather is fairly pleasant as far as the sun is concerned. The temperatures are way down. Van Bon's got himself up to the front group there. George Hincapie. Oh, almost a touch of wheels there alongside Hincapie, but they've all got themselves sorted again. Short right turn, another change of direction. The riders will then find the wind coming at, and look at the riders again behind the crowd, which is standing in the center of the road. This is the biggest problem of racing in Belgium, is the way they design their roads, because when you're not riding a bike in a bike race, you don't ride on the roads, you ride on the specially made cycle paths, and so they're not thinking too much of cyclists when they design the roads here.
Lamprey taking a serious option at the front end of the main field. Their man Alessandro Ballan has had a very good start to the season, and a lot of people tip him as an outsider to win the race here this afternoon. You see it right in the middle there, Servais Knaben, and you can see this acceleration has really started to catch these riders out. The time gap down to 32 seconds. This is a nice little road after the riders have taken that right-hand bend. They drop down there. Into the bottom is the town of Westhouten, and then they will start the climb up to the Vidayenberg, or the Mont Noir as it used to be called. I think these two guys, Phil, seasoned professional on the front, Bernard Eisel, they know now that they're going to get caught before they get to the mountains.
They're just secretly hoping, I think, they can get onto those little foothills before the peloton does tag them back. But that change of direction, you see, has hurt the rear of the peloton again. It's gone into a long, thin line, and there'll be one or two guys picked off the back once more. And the way they're riding this year towards the Kemmelberg first time, I think we're going to see half of that bunch in trouble on the cobbles of the Kemmel.
Interesting to see how Tom Bonen can ride on that ascent. He was the strongest man at the weekend on the climbs, like, of course, the older Quaremont, and then definitely the most easy on the Koppenberg. He rode up that as if it was a flat hill.
Very, very impressive. He reduced the race to just 15 riders on that hill, and he also reduced Alessandro Patacchi to retirement. Now there's another little tricky bit there as they go through the S's. Not too sure why that was like that. Onto the cobbles anyway, into Westhouten, 160 meters of them.
I wouldn't really call these cobblestones. They're very much ornamental cobblestones, small clinkers, very smooth surface.
Oh dear me, this is going to be a tight fit.
Yeah, that's a bit dodgy, that. I think what's happening there is they're constructing these all over Belgium. It's a system to try and reduce the width of the road to stop people speeding coming into towns. The gap to the 2 leaders now down to 18 seconds. But you have to really be attentive in these races in Belgium because there are so many difficult kinds of road furniture. And just watch this. These guys will take every possible way to get down the road as quickly as possible.
Traffic calmers, I think they're called, but they leave for very nervous bike riders, that's for sure.
This is the left-hand turn now as they leave the town. This is the small town of Westhouten in the very heart of the Heuvelland. This is also the start of the climb. I doubt if we'll see any acceleration coming here, but you will see 1 or 2 riders suffering at the back because this is a fairly open climb to begin with, made a lot more difficult by the fact there's a strong crosswind.
Well, it's probably the wind that's keeping the rain away because the clouds have got a bit of moisture in them.
Like Nico Matin, a little flurry of activity off the front. When you get to the top of this climb, by the way, if you turn to the right, you're about 1 kilometer away from the French border, but in fact the race goes to the left. That's Matin.
It was Matin who's gone, number 1. Number 11 rather. Number 1 is Tom Bonen as the world champion. And it's a Gerolsteiner rider who's gone after him.
It's David Kopp who's managed to get out of the group there.
Well, David's an old favourite of ours from his days when he was on a small German team. He used to be alongside Jan Ullrich, but he wanted to lead his own team, so he left Jan Ullrich and went to a smaller German team, and he came over to South Africa to ride the races there for a couple of years, but now he's got himself onto the big teams again. This time he's gone with Gerolstein. Right, the Vidaineberg is the first steady drag of the day, 13 seconds, so it's virtually going to be caught here.
Everybody's actually trying to get the move before the start of the Vidaineberg, and that is rather interesting because there's a long way to go from the top of this climb till the riders actually get across to the Kemmelberg. This looks very much as if this is going to be Andre Griepel coming across from T-Mobile, who actually, strangely enough, Phil, are not fielding a full squad here this afternoon. Many of the teams already this season suffering from injuries.
Yes, there's only 6 riders here on T-Mobile. They could have up to 8. So they've just come here for a bit of training, I think, although they're in the thick of the action, let's face it. And we're all together now, so they've caught them at 69 kilometers to go.
That's Gusev over on the right-hand side. He's just about to get pulled back into the main group. But this could be rather interesting because this is a group of riders not very well regarded as winners of Ghent Wevelgem. The big men like Tom Bonen, Patacchi, Eric Zabul, George Hincapie have actually still to make a move.
Well, they know where this race is often decided. That's on the slopes of the Kemmel, and it's usually decided the second time around. But the way they've raced to it this time, there's boys with different ideas, I think.
This is Eisel on the front, and this might be nice for Bernard Eisel.
This may have been the plan.
You can see there's no reaction in the group. There's Van Bon, pretty close to the front. Juan Antonio Fletcher will be looking to try and go better than second place last year. A little bit sad for him, I think, because he got caught out by that rather nasty motor pacing by Nico Matin. You can't really blame Nico Matin. It was the race organisation who really needed to get all of the cars out of the event.
They were caught. They shouldn't have been where they were. The race split up in the last 3 kilometres and they were compromised. And the race director was replaced after that, which is quite a severe punishment.
Well, the reason he was suspended was to try and keep the event in the UCI Pro Tour because they were not very happy about that breakdown in organisation down towards the end.
Right, well, this is David Kopp here at the front now, getting a bit of a helping hand from Liberty Seguros, and the rider who's gone there with him is, well, it looks like Alan Davis.
It is Alan Davis.
Another sprinter who's having an attack.
Well, this is a good move by Alan Davis to try and surprise the sprinters, and in fact everybody now has decided they want to try and get in a small breakaway before we get to the Kemmelberg. There's always a big battle to get to the Kemmelberg. So if you can get 15 or 20 seconds advantage before you get there, you don't have to fight to get around that left-hand corner.
Well, Davis from warmer climes, although he's had a pretty good start to the year as well. He started well in January with 2 stage wins in the Jacobs Creek Tour Down Under. And now he's trying to get a group going here before they get to the hard bit, which is the Kemmelberg. Steady drag here, good main road drag, and they're picking up that strong tailwind you can see from the flag, which makes it much more difficult on a climb to cross the gap.
Marco Milesi was the rider on the back there from Leaky Gas. There's 6 riders there. If they can just reform at the front and form a nice 8-man breakaway, that could be rather an interesting part of the event. As we look back, we can see another group of 4 riders trying to come across. Well, that's Milesi.
It is amazing how they split up here, Paul.
And Marcus Burkhardt is in there as well for T-Mobile. This is the Rodeberg, or the Red Mountain. It's about 15%. It's not very long. It's only about 400 meters, but it's actually acting here as a launch pad for a fairly serious, large breakaway group. And now I don't think the main contenders, Phil, can allow something like this to form.
Well, this is a pattern we don't normally see in Ghent Wevelgem. And it looks as though we're going to go to the Kemmel with about 3 or 4 groups together. Those 2 have assessed it. There's the peloton. They're not that far behind. We're going over the top where that banner is. That's the top of the climb. We'll wend our way down. Kemmelberg not far away now. And I think the peloton about to bridge to most of them anyway.
Well, there's still a couple of riders off the front. Alan Davis certainly seems to have slipped away from that group.
Yeah.
But you can see everyone scrambling across. This is the top of the Rodeberg here, the Red Mountain. They'll drop down rather steep descent, take a right-hand turn, then head down towards the small town of Loka. And then it's the little bit of aggression starting up the Monteberg. And then, of course, the big one of the day, the big one of this circuit is, of course, the Kemmelberg.
Peloton are getting themselves reorganized here. 67 kilometers to go. Very, very rapid descent, but it's not a long one before they run out of road again. Long, thin line of riders. Just up the road there, the 2 leaders, David Kopp and Alan Davis. Both very fast sprinters, by the way. And I reckon they want to get away over the top and join a leading group.
They certainly do. If it hadn't been for a man by the name of Tom Boonen, well, Alan Davis would have had a number of wins so far this season. He finished second to Tom Boonen on 3 occasions in Paris-Nice. The only man really capable of getting anywhere near the big tornado from Belgium.
Well, Liberty Seguros, Davis's team, I think have had 11 second places so far this year. And, you know, just that much, an eyelid away from greatness.
It's almost the same number of second places as Eric Zabul.
He's always getting second these days.
Well, actually, they're going to get caught before they get to the Kemmelberg. That's Alan Davis on the right-hand side.
He's going again here.
He sees the opportunity. There's a chance here of survival, but it's T-Mobile on the front there who are being very attentive and making sure that nothing goes off the front. Eric Zabul riding not for T-Mobile anymore. He was the man that could be looking for a ride here this afternoon. I think he may well get the nod from Alessandro Petacchi. He rode very well on Sunday in the Tour of Flanders as they go through this little town here of Loka. These roads are so famous. A lot of riders coming over to this part of the world for training during the early part of the season, especially the riders from the West Flanders, because these are basically the only climbs that the riders can get to very easily in this area known as the Heuvelland. A lot of cycle paths around here, and you can see Davide Monlotto very attentive at the front. That looks like Baden Cook over on the right-hand side. He too is a man who I have to say has been looking for a victory in the early part of this season. I think he's quite happy that he's changed from Française des Jeux.
Well, he started off with the right idea. He got his win in the first race of the year in France, but hasn't really... He's been up or near about a top 10 finish in the big races, but he hasn't quite pierced the podium positions yet.
There's Boonen right in the front line. This man has got incredible form this season. He's becoming a real star in Belgium as well. He's almost got a playboy look to him, and he's very much supported by majority of the female population of this country.
Everybody likes him. He's being talked about as the David Beckham now, the great footballer Beckham of the cycling world. This is a nasty little climb. This just hurts a bit, but the speed they're riding up it. Just started the Monteberg. It's only 300 meters, then we'll dive down, and then we're heading up to the Kemmel. Henk's riding pretty well on the left there. Good for him. He's had a second place here when he was beaten by Andreas Clear. And it would have been a great return to him to the international scene, because he's raced a lot in America. He dropped out of the international scene and went to the United States, where he had a very serious crash. He recovered, and he's back here on the international circuit again, enjoying himself immensely. Although he is an Australian, he understands the language here in Belgium because his father was Dutch.
Well, Vogels really is looking fairly confident there. So too is Baden Cook, because it's Baden Cook at the front end of the group there. Strange to see him in this sort of light green and white jersey of Team Unibet. He took the challenge to move across from Française des Jeux through the winter, and I was a bit surprised for him to move to the Unibet, but they were expecting to get themselves a slot in the UCI Pro Tour squads.
Yes, they're also hoping for a wild card in the Tour de France, and I think they're a little bit disappointed with that. And it would have given Jeremy Hunt his first ever attempt at the Tour de France. Hunt's now 32 years of age, so if it doesn't happen soon, I'm afraid it's never going to happen for him. Oh, there's been a crash there. And that's one of the Discovery boys who's gone down.
He went down. That was a little bit of a ruckus at the back.
Touch of wheels there. Yeah. Oh, he went off the road. Yeah. Oh, ouch. He went down the ditch there, which was rather unfortunate.
That was a nasty little thing. He was just a bit on the rivet, I would have to say.
No,
there.
it's Mikhailov. Yeah.
And I think what was happening there, Phil, he was a bit on the rivet. He was over to the right-hand side trying to get a little bit of shelter, and he just popped off the side of the road, because very often there's a 3 or 4 inch drop at the side of the roads here in Belgium. If you're not careful and you're not a good bike handler, you forget to try and flick the bike back up onto the road.
Well, they don't want any more injuries on Discovery Channel. They've got a bag full at the moment, including Max van Heeswijk, who's had a very nasty knee injury, and he's going to take a while to recover from that.
It looks now as if pretty much everyone's looking after themselves. One teammate just in front of Tom Boonen.
Zabul's got himself right there too. So it's quite amazing. These boys are fighting. They know the importance of seeing this hill for the first time in the first 6 or 7 riders. After that, it's a lottery.
Switching Cappy over to the left-hand side. Got a couple of riders around him. Leif Hoster's not too far away either, looking rather good after his second place in Tour of Flanders just the other day.
Oh, we're very, very close to turning onto the Kemmel now, and these boys have got control of the head of the field. 61 kilometers to go. What's the odds now, I wonder, on Tom Boonen doing exactly what he did on the Koppenberg and try to rip the field apart on the first climb? Because he looks as though he's intent on doing something here. He's got magical form. We were wondering if he might try to hand the win today to his teammate Pizzato, who works so hard for him in the Tour de Flanders.
It's an impressive team. They really don't care who wins, although I have to say Tom Boonen definitely wanted to be the #1 leader. There's the left-hand turn.
And that's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous, Paul. I don't know why. It's as if they're all surprised by the fact they're now on the Kemmelberg.
Well, that is the Kemmelberg. 400 meters, climbs up just 46 meters, but it's 18.7% at the steepest part for a climb that averages out at around about 11.
510 meters of cobblestones. It looks like Thor Hushoff here, who's banging out the rhythm, and all of a sudden he's pulling away from the field. That's a pretty impressive climb by Thor Hushoff.
Very good move. He was the first man to get around the corner. There's Hincapie in about 4th or 5th position. Tom Boonen riding very sensibly there, not dictating the pace as he did on the Koppenberg. I think he just wants to see how this race is going to develop. Alessandro Patacchi just over to the right-hand side as well. He's riding this well.
Boonen just riding this one, 4th place, just keeping an eye on things, not too worried about how it comes back at him as long as he's in a safe position. The descent is very straight, but it's on these conditions it won't be too bad. But it is a very rickety old drop here. Van Bon dropping down a little bit there.
It's scary descent though, because it's such a bumpy descent, and in a straight line you're doing about 60 kilometers an hour on cobblestones, and you find your eyeballs vibrating in the top of your head. This is Hoster on the front. A nice move by him. And Tom Boonen, I think today, Phil, is just quite happy to follow and let the others dictate the pace.
Well, he just obviously rode to just put himself in a safe position there, not too worried about the situation. I think it was Cancellara who just went through on him.
Cancellara's been looking for a good ride as well, got himself a time trial victory a little while ago. But it's a long time, Phil, I think, since I've seen such a large peloton come over to Kemmelberg pretty much together.
Exactly, they seem to have ridden it very, very well, and I thought they would have split up here. Well, still they come, mind you, although you're in the pack, it doesn't mean you're anywhere near the front right now.
No, but it is a big main field. It'll be interesting to see how they drop off here, because in the past we've always seen a small group of 8 or 10 riders getting clear on the cobblestone sections. Maybe they will think of just putting the hammer down for a fraction when they come round for this second lap, which the riders have to do. There's Hoster.
And this is the descent.
That is Cancellara.
He gets to see it first. You've got to keep a tight hold of those brake levers now as you bounce your way down to the bottom.
Zabul wasn't too far away. Boonen right up at the front there. Alessandro Pataki going round.
Lost a little bit of ground. Pataki doesn't ride these roads too well.
Vogel's going through.
There's a bottle gone the other way.
That's a scary thing
Always
when that
worrying.
happens.
Yeah. Another one gone the other side too. And another one gone. But if you hit those, you can have a very nasty fall.
You certainly can. One of the things you must always remember to do when racing in Belgium is actually squash down your bottle cage before the start of the cobblestone sections, and that keeps the bottle in nice and tight. And keep out of the way if I was you, sir, because this is rather a dangerous place to be.
So the peloton should regroup here because they're not that far away from the leader.
No, they're not, and it's a big peloton, a lot of riders. Look how stretched out they are, but they are still very much together with 59 kilometers left to go to the finish.
Now you see the gaps which have formed. A lot of chasing now required from the groups behind, even though they were basically together over the top. Different varieties of nervousness on the way down there, and this is the workhorse at the front. Torhushov's getting up here, Cancellara is here, George Hincapie is here, and they're just keeping a very fast tempo. It's up to the others to bring them back. And look at the face of Tom Boonen. He's going to admire and watch George as George swings off. Boonen comes through. This is quite a powerful little group, even so, as they run away from the Kemmelberg at the end of lap number 1. We'll do it all again in a minute.
So a quick look here at this incident when that bottle came out there. It's a pretty scary moment when something like that goes down in front of you, because if you hit one of those bottles, it really is rather difficult to control, because at the moment all of these guys are actually right on the edge of safety.
Well, at least 4 bottles went at the same point there.
Move coming here from Sonia Duval. Now that's a very clever move, because this is just at the point where everybody's happy to have got over the Kemmelberg. They're happy to have got down the descent safely. So that move, I didn't catch who the rider was from Sonia Duval, could in fact succeed to get himself a 30 or 40 second advantage.
Well, we'll find out, but he's still got to stay away, of course.
Elmiger on the front there for Team Phonak.
They could do with a little result now. They had a great start to the season with wins, particularly with Floyd Landis. But now they could do with a win on one of these single-day races.
Actually, an American on the Sonia Duval team, Aaron Olsen, getting a chance here to ride some of the big professional races. I think he was encouraged to go to the event, to go to this team by Chris Horner, who actually had to leave the team because they couldn't make a decision on his contract. And he now rides for De Vita Monlotto.
Well, there he is. And it looks to me as though it is Ventoso. Now, he rode extremely well in the Tour of Flanders.
Clever move here. As he makes his way. This is the town of Kemmel, just at the bottom of the Kemmelberg. And nobody's actually reacted to this move at all. So he may well get himself a 30 or 40 second advantage. But I do think, Phil, they're going to take this climb of the Kemmelberg the second time up a little bit more seriously.
Yes, it is Ventoso, Francisco. 24 years of age, just on. His birthday's next month. And he's just had 2 wins into the town of Kemmel itself now. The Berg is behind them for the moment. There's the move by Ventoso. He was right in the cameras too during the Tour of Flanders. Well, if you've got good form, why not tell them all about it? That's the attitude to take. Although I think they might have decided to jump on him here because they've all come back together. Now, a little bit of a slowing down here, but this is going to allow a lot of riders back into the race.
Well, at this point, you see a lot of riders who've got themselves over the Kemmelberg are starting to feel quite confident. That's Frédéric Guédon on the front. Having a pretty good start to the season, no real success, but he's a man who in the past was a surprise winner of Paris-Roubaix, and that will always be on his pedigree until the day that he retires. This is Elmiger, the Swiss national champion for Team Phonak. But I think these are rather silly little flurries. Nobody's yet breaking the stranglehold of the main field.
The Phonak champion there on the right, looking over to see who's going to come and play with him. Not a lot at the moment. Maybe Gregory Ratz. And the echelon forms again. Now, how many riders we can just lift up and see? It's pretty much the whole field is coming back here.
It's a big group still.
Because they're still freewheeling though. Interesting the way they're riding the race this year. Very strange. Mario Cipollini, by the way, was the last man to win this race 3 times. His last time was in 2002.
This is a very strange race. I think probably because the wind is not as strong as it normally is. That's why we're seeing these rather strange attacks. These are almost attacks that you would see 20 or 30 years ago. They seem to be slow motion attacks. Everybody's very attentive, but you can see there has been a fair big split in the main field because there are no team cars behind.
You might be able to hear the band at the moment at the finishing line. It's coming straight through our commentary box floor, I think. The Belgians like the big drums. We've just had an amateur elite race here, and now they've let the band loose on the course. But we're out in the countryside here, some 56 kilometers still to go. One more lap of the Kemmelberg before the dash for the finish of around 40 kilometers of flattish roads. And we could be contemplating a bunch sprint here unless something happens on the last climb up the Kemmelberg. 5 riders trying to go clear while the others think about what to do.
Well, we'll have to go back a long time till we had a real serious bunch sprint, but that is a very large group. 1 or 2 riders just making the junction at the back end. They were dropped over the first attempt of the Kemmelberg. But this is a huge gap, a huge group, Phil, I have to say. The gap, 14 seconds of that small breakaway group. And we haven't had a chance yet to see just exactly who's in there.
I think there's 5 riders made the initial sortie.
This is Stefan de Jong, who's in there for Quick Step. Also getting in there for Team Gerolsteiner is Renee Hasselbeck. Now, he'd be a good man if this group was to succeed because he's got a very fast turn of speed down towards the end.
Very quick sprint.
86 is Anthony Geslin. Good rider, finished 3rd in the World Championships last year, rides for Bouygues Telecom. And Milram have managed to put a man in this breakaway too.
Yes, and de Jong had himself a win already this year, and it looks as though Matin's got in there. That looked like it was Nico Matin just went through the camera. We'll check him out. No, I don't think so.
Cortinovas has got himself into the group
yes,
as well.
Yes, it is. No, it's number 17. It looked like number 11, didn't it? It's number 17, Van Sevenant, yeah.
So it's a 5-man leading group here with 22 seconds. In fact, there's no real reaction in the main field coming here as they come through the town of De Kleedje. Once they go through De Kleedje, they go back onto the same circuit they went through before, going up through Loke into Westouter and starting the Montenoir. And Phil, just looking down there at the main field, there is no reaction. This could be a strange Ghent Wevelgem.
They're all going to pick up the bottles they've left behind on the Kemmelberg here at the moment, and they've assessed that breakaway with no real star-studded name in it. Even though Jeslan did get 3rd in the world, he's not amongst the big riders of the peloton. So they're just going to watch the likes of Hincapie here, Bonen, and say, all right, well, who's going to have a go then? The teams, the big teams have got riders up there, and that gap will open quite quickly, I think, which means that we're going to be treated to a big chase off the top of the Kemmelberg.
It'll be a big charge once they go over the Kemmelberg next time and up towards the main road. And I think really the race has taken this strange pattern because the weather conditions are not as bad as they have been in recent years. It's a very nice afternoon, only around about 12 degrees Celsius, but the wind is not as strong as we normally get in this part of Belgium in the early part of the season.
It may have been quite windy off the coast, but I think it was largely favourable and it kept them together because the flags are straight out at the finishing line here. 45 seconds, the gap. Van Bon trying to move forward here.
Well, he'll try and block a little bit because he'd be quite happy with the presence of Van Sevenant in the front group there, that at least Davide Lotto have got presence in that leading group. They got a bit of a slamming from the team sponsor because they didn't win the Tour of Flanders, but I have to say I thought that Peter van Petegem did a very good ride, considering he was fairly isolated, as were most riders in that group on the Tour of Flanders on Sunday.
Well, Lampre have got nobody in the group, that's for sure, as they try to get something going now.
47 seconds, that is a large opening of that gap very rapidly indeed, and still no main organisation. You might well see that the teams of the sprinters want to keep this group together so they can organise themselves on the 40-kilometre chase from the Kemmelberg the last time down towards the finishing Wevelgem.
Those wide concrete slabs that they build roads with here in Belgium, the bits on the side are normally the cycle paths. And 4 riders trying to go clear. But the race is chasing them down here. Van Bon's in this group, but he's not going to help. As Paul has said, they've got Wim van Sevenant, who's already had quite a long year this year because he started his season in January in the Tour Down Under. He was spent a lot of time training in Cape Town early before he went over, so really it's going to feel pretty cold for him at the moment here.
Quick Step have done a very good move as well, putting Stefan de Jong in that leading group. He's already had himself a win in the the week leading up to the Tour of Flanders. He won the third stage, the morning stage of the 3 days of La Panne in the big sprint. It disappeared a little bit in the individual time trial, but you can see how difficult it is with the wind pushing the riders right over to the right-hand side of the road there. Philippe Gilbert up at the front, Van Bon feeling a little bit under pressure there. In fact, once you see a rider sit up like that, that's an indication that he was just a little bit on the rivet.
I'm just looking at the faces of those boys in the line. They're all under pressure here.
A lot of pressure, long straight line here, and I think many of the teams realizing they've made a bit of a mistake allowing that group to go clear, because there are a couple of good riders in that leading group of 5. Stefan de Jong really takes the pressure off Quick Step, and Tom Bonen can just sit back and make sure that everybody else does the chasing.
Well, it's yet another ace card being played by Quick Step, because de Jong has the ability to win this from that small group in the sprint, and Patrick Lefevre, the manager, will have told his team not to bother to chase here, because they could well take it out with de Jong, and de Jong is quite a solid name in the world of professional cycling. Not one of the big names perhaps, but he wins a lot of races.
He's won 33 races in his career, and he's 32 years of age. We've followed his career a long time since he started riding in races in Australia that we used to watch at the end of the season.
He won in Terrigal once, remember that? Went round and round the hotel.
Yeah.
He was one of his last years as an amateur in those days. What race was called the Commonwealth Bank Cycle Classic. Short, sharp stages, yes. Cortinovis is there. He's the man from Milram.
Quite interesting, the two big teams, Quick Step and Milram, have managed to get a rider into this leading group. That takes a bit of pressure on them and puts a lot of pressure on the other teams in this race to organise the chase at the front end of the main field.
There's Stefan de Jong, the man we're talking about, flying the flag for Quick Step now, and packs a very good sprint finish. Hasselbeck will give him a run for his money, and talking of Hasselbeck, there he is, 1-2-2. I must say the Milram colours, which is a new team on the block, and Gerolstein are quite confusing when they're close up like that.
It's funny how teams, although they never communicate, they always end up coming up with the same colour each season.
It always seems to be a colour of the year, doesn't it? And it looks as though it's blue this year.
It looks like it's have to be 4 blues to 1 red.
Yep. See, they're being held at 42 seconds now because there is a reaction from the field. It's not closing them down, but it's holding their advantage here. But they seem to be all working, and there's big teams represented, so they're not going to chase them down just yet.
They need a concerted effort if they want to pull these riders back. And it's 44 seconds, 3/4 of a minute, and that is a very long straightaway. Looking back there, you can see the main field, but you can see the speed as well of the main field. They're starting to get themselves organised, but I wonder which team is going to come up with the chase.
Well, T-Mobile haven't got the firepower, that's for sure, to get Andreas Klein up there.
It's actually Discovery Channel who've decided they want to whip the pace at the front end of the main field. I think the reason for that is maybe George Hincapie, with the form that he's got, is thinking about a second win here.
Well, he has got good form. Of that there is no doubt. He loves the Spring Classics, but I'm wondering if George will wait until Sunday in Paris-Roubaix, a race which everybody would love him to win. He's been so close so many times. Podium place, 4th place finishes.
Well, he had said this morning that he just wanted to make sure he kept out of trouble in Ghent Wevelgem. We are hearing from his team that he has got the best form of his career, and he certainly showed that at the weekend. Apart from Tom Bonen, he was the most comfortable of all of the riders on the big cobbled climbs.
Well, these riders here, I must say, are getting plenty of miles in today. 208 kilometres, I think it is. As again, they've got to that area of traffic calmers where they dodge both sides this time.
And this is the town of Westhouten. Just coming into Westhouten, a little cobblestone section in the bottom of the town. And they are starting to whip up the pace now. You can see the main field starting to stretch out into a long line. 50 kilometres left to go. It's about an hour and 10 minutes at professional speeds like this.
The little cobbled churchyard area here. Matt White driving on the front, trying to pull this race along as best he can to get it back into the action. Never afraid to work is Matt White.
He's quite happy to come back to Team Discovery Channel. He was a member originally of the US Postal Service, decided to leave that squad to go and join Stuart O'Grady on the Team Cofidis because he wanted to ride in the Tour de France. But I think because of the fact he was going to change to the team that never formed during the winter month, the team was supposed to be sponsored by Sony as a replacement for Team Fassa Bortler. He got caught out like a lot of riders who ended up scrabbling for a contract, and it was nice to see him get picked up by Discovery.
I was looking at the breakaway here. They all seem to be going through and off nicely. Heading on to the Vidanjeberg again.
Kortinovas just moving over to the left now, taking his line. I don't think he's ever won a professional race in his career, that man, and he's been a professional since around about 1998. Geslin coming through next. Team, basically one of the rare teams which is very, very much French dominated. And Matty White, look at the face on Matty White here. He really does like to give it some stick.
Pulled it back to nearly half a minute now, so he's eating into that. He's trying to give the likes of Hincapie a good run at the finishing at the last climb of the Kemmelberg. They can just get close to, even if they don't catch him. Maybe they'll sprint the gap closed on the Kemmelberg itself. There are still two guns to fire here, Hoster and Hincapie. They'll be the two boys that'll be the protected riders, if you will.
Well, they are a team on form at this time of the year, Team Discovery Channel. They've completely changed their axis since the retirement of Lance Armstrong, and they want to be a team capable of participating on all fronts during the season. They've certainly done that well with second and third place in the Tour of Flanders, and of course the leading team in the UCI Pro Tour.
Well, obviously the word has gone out for the Discovery boys to get to the front and close the gap down, which means they are taking an interest in the result today. And that's why they put their riders up here on the front to drive on.
Well, Matty White doing the bulk of the work, but he has got a couple of teammates up alongside him to help and assist with the pacemaking. And he's done a serious amount of damage too, because that time gap had gone up to almost 3/4 of a minute. Now it's down to just 30 seconds.
And here comes a Nuscateluscardi rider trying to make it a little bit of a go off the side here. They're having a very enjoyable week in the Tour of Pays Basque at the moment. As we speak, the leader of that race is Samuel Sanchez of their team. 32 seconds, but he's pedaled away from it now.
And this is Iker Flores who's got himself off the front here. These riders not scared at all on the hilly section of this course. And this team, a team which has been incorporated into the UCI Pro Tour, and he's opened himself up rather a sensible gap.
Well, that's amazing how he's just pedaled away. Matt White looked as though he was setting quite a hard tempo there, and Iker Flores has shot off the front. There's where they switch back on themselves.
And that's the corner there where if you were to turn to the right, come down to the bottom of the screen, you're about 1 kilometre away from the French border. Here they're taking a left-hand turn, going back into the heart of the Heuvelland. So Matty White not too worried about any of this, and he's in fact disappeared a little bit from the front of the group.
Yeah, Matty's gone now. I think this is the other Russian rider here. They really are in the wars, Discovery Channel, right now.
A lot of injuries. They're very worried about getting enough riders to participate in Paris-Roubaix at the weekend, just after those very nasty crashes of Roger Hammond and of course Michael Barry in the Tour of Flanders. But Hincapie, I think, is in fine form. He's kept himself out of all kinds of danger here this afternoon, and that's the most important thing for him. That's the achtervolger, the first chaser, Iker Flores, and he's actually being pulled back very sensibly by the main group there, who are keeping a fairly good pressure on the front end of the peloton.
Well, it looks as though Discovery have recalled, in fact, Benjamin Novell for Sunday's Paris-Roubaix. He's not here yet, but he will be. And Joachim Benoit, who's riding this race today from Luxembourg, saw him sign in this morning. And this is Flores sitting there waiting now. He knows they're coming as we get up towards the top of the Rodeberg. It's got about 100 meters or so to go. And then we begin our plunge down to the Kemmelberg again. All of the work of the Discovery Channel to bring this race back together. And the peloton's still quite large. Doesn't look so large in this picture, but believe me, it is.
Well, they're keeping it at a sensible gap there, just hovering around about the 30-second mark. And if it's 30 seconds once they get to the Monteberg, that could be very easily wiped away before they go up to the Kemmelberg next time. They're not letting that group get too far off the front.
Well, we haven't seen too much of that group at the moment, I must say, so we don't know what's going on up there. But Stefan de Jong, Anthony Geslin, Hasselbeck, Wim van Sevens and Kortinovis are the riders. Here they are.
7 at the back there from De Wittemont Lotto. That's Kortinovis in the new colours of Team Milram. And they're descending off the top of the red mountain here, the Mont Rouge, and that's 70 kilometres an hour. That's almost 40 miles an hour that these riders are going off the top of this climb at.
Yeah, it's over 40 miles an hour. It's almost 45 miles an hour. 33 seconds, and that's a nasty right-hander too, with those traffic islands in the middle. And it was Stefan de Jong who saw it coming at him there. There's the full list again for you. Renee Hasselbeck, a good sprinter, so too is de Jong. It's a bit early to think that they'll be surviving to sprint to the finish yet, though, because I think there'll be a big reaction this time up the Kemmelberg. And if they can get clear there, then they'll soon get across to this group. 36 seconds, very manageable. There's the peloton, making that rather tight fit around the side, and that's the part that's the most dangerous, and they've managed to sight it, I think, and get over the top of it.
Still a really big peloton for this stage of the game, Wevelgem. We normally, by this stage of the game, are down to just 30 or 40 riders. So it's going to be a big battle this time coming up to the Kemmelberg, and maybe quite dangerous, the approach.
Well, the return of Matt White to the front here, and he's lifted the tempo yet again. It was out to 48, I think it was. It was down to 30 when Matt was doing his turn on the front. It's 36 just now.
They're obviously trying to keep this very close together, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a move coming from Leif Hoster and Georgie Hincapie when they get to the Kemmelberg next time. Hoster in incredible form so far this season, had a very good start to the year, and I think all of Belgium was very happy to see him in that breakaway just the other day.
I must say that he was a little unlucky in as much that Tom Bonen won the race, because the papers hardly mentioned who finished second, which was unlucky for a Belgian like Hoster.
Well, it was the second time he'd finished second in the Tour of Flanders. He finished a couple of years ago to second to Stefan Weserman. And on that occasion, he was severely criticised for chasing down Dave Brylance, and the two Belgians in the breakaway chasing each other down. And in fact, Team De Wittemont Lotto, I think, are making rather a mistake there letting him go, because he's been a real stalwart for Team Discovery Channel in the one-day classics.
Well, that little turn by White has got it back almost to half a minute now. This is life at the back of the peloton. Just holding that wheel in front for as long as you can, hoping the front end slows down a bit. It looks as though it might be raining behind the riders now too. The weather comes and goes.
Very dark skies. There's Henk Vogels in the middle, looking comfortable. Been given a free card here this afternoon. There's Martin Den Bakker moving up through the middle as well in the pale blue jersey. Won't do anything to encourage the pacemaking at the front, because they're quite happy, I think, with their man Kortinovis being in that leading group. There's Matty White again, gritting his teeth, just thinking, if I can get the guys in a good position to the Kemmelberg, well, that's okay for me, job done. I can take the short ride home.
He's certainly hurting a few of the boys behind him there. You can see by their faces. They know what his job is, and that's to get Hincapie and Hoster back into the game. And I was about to say he'll drop off as soon as he sees the Kemmelberg, but I think he might be a bit premature. He's dropping off now.
He said, thanks very much. You guys can fight it out. I think I'll just stay here and have a bit of a breather. But this is almost like a bunch sprint now as these riders come down into the small town of Lokeren.
But you saw how fast that Matty White was going, and he's not made a great impression. It's still, oh, it's coming down all of a sudden. 29 seconds now, 43 kilometres to go. That's about 26.5 miles still to go.
So, you know, if you take the wrong line around that corner, you go from 10th or 15th place in the line to right at the back in the last 10 or 15 places. You've got to be so attentive at this point of the game. You just notice Eric Zabul riding very closely to the front. He's being quite attentive here this afternoon. Henk Vogels doing the team job there, but making sure that he keeps himself at the front end of the group.
New wave coming through on both sides of the peloton to replace the tiring men at the front there. There's the gap. That represents 21 seconds. It's coming down all of a sudden, very rapidly indeed. And there seem to be no passengers on this breakaway here. Just sitting at the back at the moment is the sprinter, Renee Hasselbeck. And let's hope that the motorbikes get round that turn onto the Kemmelberg a bit sharper this time around. Give the boys a chance to see the quarry.
Well, that's Van Sevenant on the front there with the black shorts and the red and black jersey of Team Davita Monlotto. He's been a professional since 1994. He's only ever won one race, and that was a small race in Ninova, which is just not too far away from the finish of the Tour of Flanders on Sunday. The leading group of 5, and they will lose a big chunk of time, Phil, as they get closer to the Kemmelberg, because I think the main field are really going to turn up the throttle this time.
It's got to be now or never, otherwise they will face it up to a bunch sprint. It's unlikely they'll split away on the run into Wevelgem. It's a sprinter's paradise once you get down the last couple of kilometres of the road. There will be a lot of wind direction change as they race in. That can hurt them. It could accelerate a reasonable group away. Vogel's just tucked in on the left side there, still looking pretty good. Suffering a little bit, but looking good. This is Stigmans on the far right of our picture. Thor Hushoff well placed, just peeping into the picture on the right. And for another crack at the Kemmelberg. He rode it with determination last time up it.
That's Servais Carnarvon in the middle, in the dark blue jersey of Team Quickstep, and a little bit further back I can see, always not too far away from the front of this group, Eric Zabul.
And it's goodbye at the back of the peloton here to the Lamprey rider Claudio Corioni. Or is he coming back on? He might be coming back on.
May well have just been back to the team cars, had a mechanical incident, but it is not the ideal time to make contact with the main field. In fact, it looked as if a teammate there was going back to help pace him into the group. There's Eric Zabul just over to the left-hand side in the pale blue jersey. I've still got to get used to him not riding in a pink jersey. He raced for so many years on T-Mobile.
Yeah, he's there.
I can't actually see Tom Bonan near the front now either.
That's a good point, actually, Paul. He seemed to disappear after that last climb of the Kemmelberg. I wonder if he slipped to the back and abandoned.
Well, for Tom Bonan, the most important thing is the race on Sunday, Paris-Roubaix. He would like to try and get the double again. A number of riders have won. There's Tom Bonan just sitting at the back there. He's
way down.
Probably feels today, Phil, that this could end up being a big bunch sprint, and he doesn't want to battle at the front end now.
Yeah. It was all or nothing on the last lap. Perhaps you're right, because sitting where he is now is not the place to be, because unless he's decided the split may not happen, he'll have sensed whatever was going on last time up the climb. 25 seconds the gap. Huge crowd. There's only one little coffee shop on the top there, and they are packed out. They put televisions in. There's Bonan, the World Championship bands, trying to move back up the outside. Interesting to see how he can afford to let himself go so far back. It's a hard journey back to the front, because you can see his road is blocked now.
Well, it's absolutely blocked, and this is really strange tactics. Everybody's trying to get to the front, but I don't think there's going to be a big explosive move on this climb. You can see everybody trying to take a few risks going up the right-hand side there, but it's basically the whole field is blocked, and that leading group of 5 now stretched out a little bit more to almost the 30-second mark.
Yes, they're just preoccupied just now on the chase from the group. This is the head of the race. Every time we go back, it always seems to be Van Sevenant who's doing the lion's share of the work. Well, how's he going to handle this one? Because here we go for the second time on the Kemmelberg. Van Sevenant is round first from Stefan de Jong in second place. 18.75% the climb, more or less 1 in 5.
It's a nasty climb as well, because it actually kicks up towards the top and gets steeper as you carry on. And you don't get a very good run at it either, because you've got that left-hand turn at the bottom that the riders in the main field will be fighting to get to. Geslin's suffering a little bit here, and in fact so too is Wim van Sevenant, having done all of the pacemaking, and the man doing the damage on the front looks to be Renee Hasselbeck.
Yes, Geslin here is just about hanging on to this group. This is further back, and this is Vogel setting the pace here now from the peloton at 25 seconds. Vogel's looking good today, I must say.
And it's Alan Davis as well. It looks like the Australians thinking about the possibility of getting themselves a win. Here is Hasselbeck on the front in the pale blue jersey of Team Gerolsteiner, who are having a very good start to their season. De Jong in second place, Kortinova's third, and just hanging on the back there, Wim van Sevenant. But the gap just 24 seconds. I can see this actually coming together as we go over the top of the descent.
That's how to advertise your bike shop. If you know where the cameras are working, we'd like to see the race. Here they come. Hasselbeck coming up towards the top. This is where it gets a little bit sticky as they race up to the line. Just keeping them in sight is Geslin over the top. Hasselbeck leads the group of 4, followed by de Jong, Kortinovis, and then Van Sevenant, and then Anthony Geslin. he should get back on the way down. There's the USA flag flying proudly. No American in the breakaway. And is this, yes, I think this is still Alan Davis here from Liberty Seguros gritting his teeth. But the pack are right on them now. And again,
looking down most of the big names. There's Torhusov going through. To see how far down the pack Tom Bonin is this time. Maybe he's decided to take the risk of today's race being a bunch sprint, because he'd like to win the race obviously, but he doesn't want to expend that much energy because he's still probably recovering a fraction from the Tour of Flanders. There he is, halfway down the pack. You know, you can't be the dominant man in every race that you participate in.
Now you could hear the rise in the crowd though as they spotted Tom Bonin there. This is the bottle dropping descent again now. Round 7 and reaching for those brakes. You've got to keep such a grip on the handlebars on this way down. You just get rattled to pieces.
Islam making the contact as they went over the top there. Must have accelerated in between the two sections of cobblestones. 23 seconds, and there you can see it's basically the whole field very much together.
Get some idea if you can just take a look at the chain on the bike as to how these boys are bouncing their way down.
Nobody's really been caught out. This is a very strange situation here at Ghent Wevelgem. A large number of riders still in the chance of getting a victory, and it's could quite possibly come down to the big match between Alessandro Patacchi and Tom Boonen at the end.
Well, there's some very good sprinters in this race, not just Patacchi and Boonen. I think Cappy's a good sprinter when it comes down to it. South African rider Robbie Hunter's here for Phonak. It could be a very strange result. There's Matt White. He hasn't really lost ground. The boys that were doing all the work for Discovery, last 3 riders there. But they might recover now because the race is going to run away from the Kemmelberg. As we turn right here now, we're heading towards the finish in Wevelgem. Still 38 kilometers away. There's a lot of little switches and changes direction on the narrow roads, which means the wind will be shifting occasionally. If you are feeling weak, you might get caught at the back. They've kept a lot of the lead. They didn't really lose much on that climb at all.
No, they didn't. I think what we'll see happening now is an organisation. Teams in the main field will now start to see who's present, which sprinters are present, and then they'll start to organise the chase to pull these riders back. 22 seconds is not yet enough if they want to survive on the 38-kilometre ride down to the finish line in Wevelgem. But I can imagine, Phil, on a race like today, we could see a big bunch sprint.
Well, I'm just wondering, 21 seconds, you're right, is nowhere like enough, but if the peloton sit up like they did when this group got away about this point 1 lap ago, then they're going to move away again. Now there's a split there, you see the field. This is how it's segmented. The damage being done on the way down rather than on the way up, because there's a degree of nervousness with some of the descenders here.
There's a degree of nervousness because of the steepness of the surface on that cobblestone descent off the summit of the Kemmel Mountain. Everybody looking back now, they're quite excited to see that there is a split. That's Davis over to the right.
Yes, and he's a good sprinter too for the finish come the line. Graham Brown, I wonder if he's still here, another man who can sprint. And Hilton Clark too is here for the first time as well. Rides for the US team, the Navigators. They're riding today, getting their taste of European action.
They've had a pretty international program the last couple of seasons, come over to these races. This race, the Grand Prix Cerami, the Grand Prix of Rennes, and they've had a certain amount of success, and I think that's what sets them up for the success in the latter part of the season in the United States. But that descent, Phil, it certainly has caused a bit of damage in this main field, but I do think we'll see a general regrouping once we get out on the wider roads and we head back towards Wevelgem.
Well, the peloton, this is the 3rd split in just the peloton alone here, all on the way down. But judging by that long line, they should rejoin. The gap is getting no closer. They're pegged at 21 seconds. What's that, about 150, 200 meters? This is the actual village of Kemmel.
This time when they come into Kemmel, they'll turn a different way and head out then towards the main road that links Yper and Wevelgem. Rabobank pretty keen to stay at the front end of the main field. Milram lining up there, you see, in 4th, 5th and 6th places. I would think they would start to think quite seriously about chasing down that group, even though they've got a teammate in it.
Yes, and just look at this now. Milram are getting lined up at the front, which indicates that Patacchi is here. There he is, tucked off to the left. So if he's here, then they're going to try and close this race right down and hand in the finish in a sprint. It will go Pataki against Bonan, as it has so often this year.
Eric Decker moving to the front there as well. Also caught a quick glimpse of Baden Cook, so he's got himself over the mountains quite well. Cookie's had a very good start to the season, and I think he would be another man tipped for the possible win here this afternoon, and that would be a bit of a slap in the face for the Pro Tour teams, because his team, Unibet, is just outside the top 20 teams. Well, there's the leading group, and Phil, it's down to 12 seconds.
It's all over, even though they're still going through quite regularly together. Again, it's Wim van Sevenen setting the pace. Sitting now at the back is Hasselbeck. But they know now that they're not going to make it to the finish. Well, Quick Step, I think, is the team of these classics at the moment. But watch out for Discovery. Despite all their injuries, they're getting some great results. As the peloton, this peloton may get away from it now because they're working extremely well.
Well, there's been a split, and that's
the second split. Is that the second split?
That's the front part. There's Tom Boonen in the front part of this split. But you can see there's no cars behind this group either. This split actually happened on the descent of the Kemmelberg.
Yeah, there are 3 splits. I don't think they've rejoined yet. 10 seconds to this group, to the 5 leaders. There's Bonan, keeping an eye on things. Just gone through the living room of somebody's house by the look of it.
Well, it's just down to 10 seconds. I'm pretty sure it'll come back together quite soon. It's the left-hand turn. This is now basically moving away over towards the main road, and then we'll have a big charge down into the outskirts of Wevelgem.
Well, the Navigator boys sat at the back here, the USA team. It's Kobazarenko, Valery Kobazarenko, Ed Beeman, the director sportif of this squad. And they're not showing as though they're phased too much by the class of bike riders here, up against the Pro Tour teams, of course. Just over 20 miles left to run. About 40 minutes of racing before they come in.
Liberty Seguros have decided to send a man to the front, and that's obviously thinking about the possibility of a win for Alan Davis, who's had a very good start to the season. 3rd in the Commonwealth Games road race a couple of days ago, and that's a pretty serious gap back there. And in fact, I wonder if the pressure on the front here will prevent the second split there from regaining.
Well, they're going to have to pull off something special, I think. They'll expect a change of direction shortly, and maybe a change of wind direction, because I think the field behind has merged the 2 groups into one. But look at the gaps forming now. There's a lot of guys can't handle this pace.
Oh, it really is starting to get tougher. Although this is supposed to be the flat part of the course now, it undulates as the riders go cross-country.
Here's the break.
There's the leading group of 5 riders. They're about to get eaten up. But what they need to do in the main field now is actually keep the pressure on, because they're widening that gap to the split behind.
Yeah, if they slow down, of course, then it will be a big grouping of the riders here. Van Sevenen has done his last turn on the front of the breakaway, that's for sure, as they tag on to the back. And I think they brought Alessandro Balan back into play here too, the Lamprey rider, because they've been working pretty hard, and he's a fast finisher. Not a lot slower than Pataki. It's a perfect sprint finish for this bunch now.
Well, that's actually a pretty small group. This is the first time we've seen a serious split here. And if we can have a look down the road, we'll get a chance to see whether or not they're going to come back. That's the Kemmelberg in the background.
Looks like they are. I'm not sure whether they're coming across or going off.
Yeah, I think
they could be being dropped.
I think they've been tailed off because of the acceleration of Liberty Seguros.
Yeah. They may as well just soft pedal a little bit and wait for the capture from this group here, and then they will probably go back up to that leading group.
Well, that's around about 25 seconds between the 2 groups, and there's a big organisation here at the front of this group from the Vitamon Lotto. So Tom Steels could be in the group. He's a man that they would like to try and get the victory for. And the fact that they're riding here, and Tom Boonen there, Phil, is actually in the second group on the road.
Yes, I thought he was, because of the different riders on setting the pace. Well, Boonen might be up in the front runners now. A 3rd win, not Boonen, I beg your pardon, there's Steels. A 3rd win for Steele to put him amongst the greats of this race, like Robert van Eenemer, Van Looy, the great Rick Van Looy, Rick 2, and Eddie Merckx, Mario Cipollini. They've all had 3 wins in this event. It's a little bit of a drag. They've got a few cars up behind now, but look in the distance there. There's the group.
This is a group that's come back from the leading group. This is the second group on the road, and it's 30 seconds. And we've seen a situation like this in the past when 30 seconds has stayed 30 seconds all the way to the finish line.
It can happen in these flat countries now, with the wind sweeping across, coming up from the top left corner of the screen just now, hitting the riders on the left shoulder, pinning them over to the right of the road. But I think I can't see this staying away somehow.
And not with a team at the back like Davide Monlotto, so dedicated to setting the pacemaking on the front. They've got the ability and the firepower to pull this race back together. And they don't seem to have too many riders in the front half of the main field. Obviously caught out a fraction there. There's a lot of riders from Team Milram on the front. 20 seconds separating them. And I think Alessandro Patacchi's done very well to get into the front group.
Well, the big drive on here. And it looks as though they are making progress, just chiseled off 1 second of the gap as they keep the pressure on. There's Tom Bonan just waiting to see how this develops without trying to do too much. There's Tom Steels in front of him.
Yep, Tom
so
Steels.
He's in the second group.
Yes, Steels is in the second group. And that's why we've seen this acceleration of Davide Monlotto on the front end of the peloton.
Well, that's interesting because and Den Bakker's there for Middelram. He's just behind, former champion of Holland.
Well, this is a serious move because these riders now have actually split off the front. You can see the wind in the flatlands here certainly having a serious effect on this main field. Bonan sitting there quite comfortably. He probably wonders what's happening here this afternoon, but he's been caught out riding at the back of the group. Not too much to worry about though, because he had a pretty successful weekend last weekend. That's Stefan de Jong, and he's got a flat tyre. This is not the time to have a flat tyre because there is no service vehicle behind him, but he should actually
He's got a bike there.
Yeah, he should take a wheel.
But what's he trying to keep it going for?
I think he's trying to wait and see if the team car is going to come forward. But this is not the thing to do right now. A lot of riders very often worried about taking a wheel from the neutral service vehicle because nowadays there are so many different widths of rear ends of the bicycles that in fact it's quite a problem trying to get a spare wheel.
Well, this looks like the area where the famous horse ran out and took out Erik Zabul a few years back, but no horses today as the race goes by safely. Coming togetherness of that group, but still up the road there is the other group.
Well, that is around about the 20-second mark, and once they're on this section of road, they really need to close the gap down before they get to the big main road, because once they get to the big main road, they'll start to catch a little bit of a tail breeze, and then it will be very hard to nail back that gap.
17 seconds, still closing. There's the wheel change just been made. Stefan de Jong is on his bike and in the group again, but he's in the second group now.
It's Nico Martin over on the right-hand side. He's trying to whip it up. That's the leading group, and this gap was all created because of the descent going through the town now of Meissen. And Team Milram are pretty happy with this situation. Kop van der Weekstrijd, front end of the bike race, and that gap is coming down 16 seconds, but they do need to nail it back before they get to the main road.
Very hard work, but it's having some effect. They know now they're inching closer to the finish, and there's some very fast finishers, not least Tom Bonan and Tom Steels in that second group and closing.
Steels always enjoyed this race, and Tom Bonan I think would like to get back here and have a crack at the bunch sprint if he could, but Team Milram realised that they want to make sure that Bonan doesn't come back into the group. Maybe a little bit of misattention there by Tom Bonan this afternoon. If he'd been another 5 or 10 faces further towards the front, he would certainly have been in this leading group.
Well, they will be very aware that Bonan has missed the move, and they've got Patacchi in the front group, so it's a perfect gift for him right now, and that's why Team Milram are doing all in their power to hold this break clear. And the rest know as well, so they're going to follow and try and take advantage from it. And not really, our camera doesn't get down deep enough into the peloton here.
There's Zabul.
Zabul is here too.
Baden Cook is in that group as well, so there's a couple of good sprinters did made the split.
Yeah. 22 seconds, Paul. It's a real pursuit now.
It's a real pursuit. There you can see Nico Martin has also missed out last year's winner. That's Tom Steels in third place. And a lot of talking going on over the radio as to just exactly what is going on at the front end of the group. But these guys have really got to bury themselves now. This is a horrible situation to be in, because you think on a flat road like this, you can close down 23 seconds very easily. But after having raced over the Kemmelberg and the Monteberg and the Rodeberg, these roads, although they're flat, are really made difficult by the wind.
Well, the Lotto boys are trying desperately to put Tom Steels back in with a chance here, but they're not really making any progress. They need more help. It's actually going out by another second now to 23 seconds, 28 kilometers to go. And the group behind, I think, is coming closer as well.
If that group gets onto the back, it'll be like an anvil tied to the back end of this group and make it very difficult for these guys to nail it on, because psychologically, when you're pulling riders along, it really starts to eat into your morale. Matin on the front, followed by Van Bon, followed by Steels. And Bonen, you know, Phil, I don't think really is too worried at all here. He's taking the risk of, if this race comes back together, well, then I can go for the sprint. And if it doesn't, well, I've already won the Tour of Flanders this year.
Yeah, c'est la vie. He's thinking now of the Paris-Roubaix, which, by the way, is will herald the return of the Forest of Arenberg this year. So they've apparently done a little bit of resurfacing there with the cobblestones.
Scary section of cobblestones. It's the equivalent of the Koppenberg in Paris-Roubaix. It's a scary section of road. It's 2.5 kilometers in length, and a lot of riders will be going from this event here to go and have a look at those cobblestone sections on either Thursday or Friday. Many of them trying out their new machines which we're hearing from Team Discovery Channel have actually got a rear suspension involved to make the coverage of the ride over the cobblestones just that little bit more comfortable.
Well, this chase group, I think, is losing ground. 28 seconds now. They've got no help. So the riders who are following, hoping for a free lift back up to the leaders, are going to have to start working. Otherwise, the elastic will stretch to its limit. 29 seconds. Now it's half a minute.
Well, this takes the pressure off Bonen a little bit, because he's the winner of Tour of Flanders, and he probably didn't want to dig too deeply into his reserves, because after the performance he put in, Phil, on Sunday, he must still be recovering a fraction, because after all, he still is a fairly young rider, only 25 years of age. I think he's probably needs that extra day. And there's the gap. It's 31 seconds back to the group containing Tom Steels and Tom Bonen, and 48 seconds back to the last peloton out on the road.
Three big bunches racing towards Wevelgem, and putting perhaps Eric Zabul in the frame here. It's continuing to go now. I think you can see them in the far distance there. The psychological bit, I think, has happened.
So I think they've got to that psychological point where the second group on the road now are having a bit of a blow to their morale. And they now realize that they've been riding for about 20 kilometers and they have done nothing at all to reduce the gap of the riders in front.
Hasselbeck is still in here.
Philippe Gilbert, number 113, over to the right-hand side. He'll be happy with this situation. He doesn't have to do too much work, and he's got a very good chance of creating the surprise when it comes down to the sprint at the end.
Well, there's the pursuit, and that's what 32 seconds looks like from tail to head of the second group. And there's another group, probably another 32 seconds back as well. It's the main field, really. And this is the part that really hurts now, because this is the wide open spaces as we head down towards the main road to Wevelgem.
There's the other group just in the distance, around about 20 seconds further back for them. Nico Matin doing a sterling job here. In fact, a little bit annoyed, Nico Matin, because he didn't make the selection for the Tour of Flanders. He was somewhat punished for not being in good form at this time of the season, but here he has to pay back to the team. Tom Steels just holding back a bit. This is not a good situation here, Phil, because there's only two riders actually doing the pacemaking, and they're chasing back basically almost the whole of the Milran team on the front of the front group.
And Lotto want a result. They need a good win here to please their sponsors in this week of classic racing in Belgium, and they've made a big mistake here, missing the move.
Well, so is Tom Bonen, but I think the pressure off his shoulders a fraction. They've got a neutral service car behind them, but it's a difficult call for two riders to pull back that group. All they need, though, is a slight slowing down. It's come back again to 23 seconds, and that's mainly because of of Nico Matin, and of course of Leon Van Bon doing most of the work on the front of that second group.
Rabobank here driving at the front. This is the main pack. It's just over 30 riders in this group. I'm not too sure who we've got here anymore for Rabobank. We've got the right combination to possibly win this one.
That's a bad move here. This is a rather sad move for Pagliarini, because he's a very good sprinter and he's been caught at the wrong end of the race there. And in fact, just running across, he will get a wheel, but he'll not get himself back into the group.
He made a mistake there, stopping on the wrong side of the road. Not too pleased, not surprised, Luciano Pagliarini. changed from Lamprey to Sonia Duval. He was in the group. Now he's seeing the second group go by, and the wheel won't go in. The third group will be here next, and all of a sudden his day is done.
Yeah, and he would have been really happy to have been in that leading group, because he's a man who's got a very good turn of speed.
Yeah, and he hasn't got many wins of late either, so he needed a result, I think.
We saw him a couple of years ago in the Tour of Langkawi, and he was on fire, won himself for a couple of stages. But that's the front end of the race, still 23 seconds. I have to say, the two men from Team De Wittemar-Lotte who are chasing are holding this group at 23 seconds and doing a brilliant job.
It keeps the pressure on the workhorses in the breakaway, because they'll know that they're not clear yet. They don't want that group to come back, not with sprinters like Bonin and Steels in there. These are good roads. They're very narrow, always changing direction. It's perfect for a breakaway to go, but it isn't really going. Just on to 30 seconds now. Pagliarini should be back in that group somewhere.
He'd be in the last group on the road, unfortunately for him. That was a very slow wheel change. And I don't know why he panicked and went over to the left-hand side of the road, because that forced the neutral service mechanic to run across in front of oncoming traffic, and that's a pretty dangerous maneuver. And he could find himself getting a fine for that, because you are supposed to change in Europe on the right-hand side of the road if you have a mechanical defect. Look at the way that's stretching out into a big long line. They really are accelerating out of that corner.
Well, they're chasing. This is the third group. This is probably the group with Pagliarini in it now. 28 seconds the gap. Not so many riders in this group.
Nope, this is the group with Tom Bonin. And it's still 30 seconds. They've got to try and nail it back. Bonin up there into fourth place. He's not taking any interest at all in this chasing. Leon van Bon here, followed by Nico Matin, followed by Tom Steels. There's Tom Bonin. They could do with just a little bit of help from one or two of the other riders, but most of the other riders who are lined up behind them have actually got members of their team in that group up the road, so they're not really worried about bringing back Tom Steels.
Well, it was either a lack of concentration or a sudden loss of interest that put Bonin in this situation, because until the second climb of the Kemmel he was in the driving seat, but he seemed to lose interest, fell down the pack, and here's the result. Close, but not close enough, as the gap goes up to 34 seconds now, and this is a great pursuit. The time is running out, just inside 15 miles to go to the line.
Rabobank putting a lot of pressure on. I wonder if Graham Brown has got himself into this leading group, and that's why you can see these guys on the front. Juan Antonio Fletcher is definitely in the group for Team Rabobank, but for the moment, now it's a slowing down like this could tip the advantage over to that group containing Tom Bonin. All they need is for the group to slow down for 400 or 500 meters, and 30 seconds gets wiped away immediately. Now this is Tom Steels trying to get across the gap himself.
Well, that's amazing. Steels, the sprinter, has realised that we're not going anywhere here just now. He's trying to liven up the rest of the race. He's sprinted away. He's caused a reaction from the rest. Now they've got to start working. 36 seconds. Well, we're pushing 3/4 of a minute, and then it will be curtains.
Well, once it gets to the 45-second mark, then I think it is completely and utterly over. He hasn't got his teammates left to do anything at all there. This was a last-minute effort, I think, by Tom Steels to try and take the pressure off his teammates. And now that I think it's pretty much over, Phil. There's the 40-second mark. And so we're not going to have a Tom Bonin victory this afternoon.
It is over and out. The race just is shutting down here now. Hollebaker, 41 seconds. It'll be out to a minute very shortly. They came close. They got to 18 seconds. They didn't make it. Now they've stretched it out. 188 kilometers done now.
Yeah, Hollebaker just on the outskirts of Ypres. This is the leading group. It's down to 36 seconds, but I think it's pretty much almost done there. It's Fletcher on the front.
He almost came into our television living room there. He was right up behind that camera bike that slowed down the bend. But Fletcher wants a result today. He wants to be #1 in this event. No Spanish rider has ever won this race.
Fletcher got pretty close last year. We all thought he'd won the race because he was away in the final few kilometers. But because of a little bit of disorganization with the following team race cars, in fact, it allowed Nico Matin to catch him with around about 500 meters to go. And Nico Matin went straight by and got himself the victory. So Rabobank there. I wonder if there's another Rabobank rider in that leading group. Yeah, there's one in second. And Team Real Ram have got a lot of riders up here as well. Eric Zabul will be probably feeling quite confident about this. CSC have got a number of riders in there as well. The former winner Lars Mikkelsen is one of the riders who's made the split. He's just over to the right-hand side. But you see the race referees are having a pretty hard job here because they've still only got the neutral service car behind, but they're now starting to send cars forward one at a time.
When they can get through, because these roads are so narrow here. We will get to a slightly wider road on the running down to the finish, but they've done well to keep the gaps there, because it's if they'd have put the cars in, that group would have made contact.
You see the chase has gone off in this
group
now.
It's gone off completely. Phil. It's all over there now.
Yeah, I think they realise now that job done, job over, and unfortunately, with just 2 riders from De Vita Monlotta, there was not a lot they could do, because there's a number of teams pretty concerted at the front there to try and chase down or stretch out the advantage, I should say, over this group containing Steels.
Van Bon did so much work. Tom Bonen sat there in the middle.
There's Martin Dumbacher there in 4th place.
Just need to now see who is in that leading group, because we haven't had a close enough look yet, just to see who is likely to take on for the finish. But could be a win for Erik Zabul today, which would be a terrific result if it was. He's been ever so close in the years gone by. He's had a 4th, but he's never had a good result in Wevelgem, really. He's always had a poor ride here. Today might be it. 20 kilometers to go.
It'll be a great win for Erik Zabul. This is the Kop van de Wegstrijd, the front end of the bike race. They need to start getting themselves organised. The gap now back to the second group on the road is around about the 1 minute mark.
Yes, that's out. The winner will come from this group now, as they're trying now to drive clear of the field here. Rabobank leading the charge. Just trying to get a good look at his face there. I think it might be Pedro Jarillo or Postuma himself.
You can actually see the organisation on the front end of the group now. It's the Milram squad. And they're not going to let anybody go off the front. I think they want to keep this group nice and compact now. The gap back to Tom Steels and Tom Bonen is 1 minute and 6 seconds. There, Wevelgem is over here this afternoon. This looks like Frédéric Guédon on the front here for FDJ.
Still a tight wind blowing them over to the right of the road, keeping them really tight. Gaps pulling away now very rapidly from group number 2. So we're looking at the winning move here, I think. The breakaway, around about 30-35 riders in this group. I thought they would have come back together. I bet the chase group did as well. They got to within 18 seconds before they realised it wasn't going to happen today.
For a long time, they probably thought it was all going to come back together. They were almost certainly just within grasping the back rider of this leading group, but unfortunately for them, the wind is very difficult in this part of Belgium. These 2 riders just insisting a fraction. They're only about 10 meters off the front of the group. Team Milram here, Phil, are pretty much in control.
4 riders that we know of in the breakaway from Milram. That's Postuma and Guédon about to get put back in their place.
Zandvoort. That is at 192 kilometers covered. That leaves these guys around about 18 kilometers to go to the finish once they come out of the town. 1 minute and 17. Not quite sure about this move here by Team Lotto. They've got themselves about 5 meters off the front end of the main field. They're hurting a lot of people, because you can see that group has really stretched out into a big long line. But even so, it is still rather a large group for Tom Bonen and Tom Steels to miss out on.
Well, it can only be a moment of inattention as far as Bonen was concerned, because he got trapped at the back. I mean, maybe he dropped back to see his team car. Goodness knows, but he knows these roads are very narrow, and it's all too easy to be caught in the wrong position.
Well, you shouldn't drop back in the area around the Kemmelberg.
Vogel is still here.
Yep, been given a free
it's
hand.
All Hushoft.
Hushoft looking pretty good.
Now, where is he riding? Right on the tail? Because if he is, he wants to move up a little bit if I was him. Hasselbeck goes through.
Hasselbeck will be very happy with being in the front half of the main field. He's got a teammate up there as well. Heinrich Hausler, number 123.
He can sprint.
Now, he is a man who could get the win here for Team Gerolstein. He's had a very good start to the season. Just a little bit further back, you can see Frédéric Guédon once a moment ago was off the front of the race. Now he's stuck at the back.
I've not seen the whereabouts of George Hincapie. I don't think he's in this group, but he's got no reason to work in it if he is in it, so he would be sitting in the centre of the pack somewhere. So it's a pity if our camera can't get in a bit tight and point a few of these riders out for us right now. But if George is in there, he could be a surprise package towards the end.
Well, it'd be interesting to see. We might get a chance to get close to this leading group once we get out onto the larger road. That's going to come up in about 4 or 5 kilometers time. Obviously, Team Milram are very happy with the situation and the makeup. There's Hausler in the pale blue. Balan is in this group. There's Lars Mikkelsen in the Team CSC jersey there, former winner of this race. He told me that at the start this morning that he was getting a bit too old to get motivated for this race, but he's found himself at the front of the pack.
I'm not sure that Pataki is here, you know, and I think they might be riding for Zabul. But I can't see him.
I haven't spotted him just yet. That would be a nice situation for Erik Zabel. There's Bonen, but unfortunately for him, he's in the wrong part of the race here this afternoon. He's 1 minute and 35 seconds down on that leading group, but I'm not sure, Phil, he's going to be too worried about it.
Oh, steady on there. He's just put on a top here. He's decided his race is done for the day. He's getting a bit of warm clothing on.
And the UCI decided that the Pro Tour jersey would actually take second place to the World Champions jersey. They designed a special jersey for Tom Bonen to wear here. So much did he want to race in this jersey. Caused a little bit of a problem last year when Oscar Freire had to wear the Pro Tour leaders jersey in an event when he grabbed the lead early on.
Well, they've all realised it's curtains for these boys now, so they're allowing all the team cars to join the front of the race as it goes out to 1 minute and 40 seconds. It's down to the training group there at the back now. Milram are here. We're still not sure Pataki is, in which case they're riding for Erik Zabel, and this could be his big chance to win here, where he never has had a top 3 finish. And he sat there almost in last position, which is where he would normally be to look after Pataki at this stage of the race.
Well, they've got themselves a lot of riders in this front group as well, so that's a nice move by them. A lot of abandoned riders actually just coming through the finishing line here. They obviously didn't do the second loop of the Kemmelberg and came straight down the main road here so that they could get to the early showers.
Yes, it's almost a tradition in Ghent Wevelgem. If you don't make the split, there is a much quicker way back to town.
Lars Mikkelsen, a cheeky little move.
Well, he's had some good wins in his career. Getting a bit long in the tooth these days, Lars, but still a very, very capable rider. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the CSC team.
No, very happy to be on Team CSC. They're going through the town of Hellerveld, and this is now onto the big main road now, but they've got almost a 2-minute advantage over that second group. And I think we'll start to see some organisation. It'd be nice to get in there. You know, it was back in 1995 that Mikkelsen won himself Ghent Wevelgem. It's an awful long time ago.
Well, he popped back with a second place in '98, so we mustn't forget him. He is 37 years of age now, and he had his birthday about 2 weeks ago, mid-March. So he's doing well to keep himself in this sort of physical condition. And here he is, going to try and see what becomes of a little bit of a tempter off the front of the group at 15 kilometers to go. Forget group number 2 now. They stopped racing back there. This is the leading group now. Lars Mikkelsen just checking over his shoulder. They had 2 riders in the move on Sunday in the Tour de Flanders. Lars has always liked Ghent Wevelgem. He's always ridden with distinction here, one way and another. And he's looking as though he's moving pretty smoothly.
Well, it's an interesting move, but it's not a move I think is going to succeed, because there are too many riders from Team Milram in that group, and they seem to be all over the front end of this group, very happy to get themselves organised. They haven't asked anybody else in the group for help at all, and they're just doing all of the pacemaking.
A team of Bjarne Riis here now, hoping that they're carrying the winner of the Tour de France this July in the shape of Ivan Basso. That'll be a very good race in the Tour de France this year. It'll be a free-for-all. Basso the obvious favourite, but there are plenty of others who will think they have a real chance at the Tour now that Armstrong has gone.
Well, Jan Ullrich is one of those who thinks he's got a good chance of winning, but he seems to be plagued already in this early part of the season with injuries. He scratched out of the Circuit of the South because of a bad knee. A race where, in fact, Ivan Basso will be participating with Bobby Julich and Jens Voigt.
Maybe that's why he really scratched, because Basso was there.
Maybe he was worried about going head-to-head in Basso in one of the early time trials, because Lance Armstrong in the past always used the Circuit of the South as a testing ground for his time trialing ability, and maybe as a first race of the season he didn't want to come up head-to-head with Ivan Basso. And just looking at the knee there of Lars Mikkelsen, it looks as if he went down on the ground a little earlier on, because it's just a little bit of knee on that, a little bit of blood on that left-hand knee. But he ain't going anywhere, is he? There he is. He's got about 10 meters 50 off the front end of the group.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the Milram boys are right on the sharp end of this race.
Mikkelsen's not giving up at all, though, but they're just going to eat him up nice and slowly if they can. This might be the chance to get into this group and see, and try and identify whether or not George Hincapie was in there. I didn't see Big George's figure, but you know he may well just be hiding in there.
Well, with 6 Milram working, they only started with 8. It's just a question of which 2 have not made the split, which is interesting at the moment because I'm not seeing Alessandro Patacchi. He's the one rider we would have expected to have seen, I think.
Yep, I would have expected to see him on the front end of that group. Bouygues Telecom just sitting at the rear end.
Well, this might be a chance to move along the peloton now and see just who is hiding in the middle here with a chance of victory later on. There's Baden Cook.
Cookie could create the surprise.
He's going to stick his nose in if he gets half a shot, that's for sure. Oh, camera bike's going rather quick now.
Yep, they've got a lot of form here, the motorbike here this afternoon. Well, on the front end of the group here, you can see Team Lim Milram are really looking very strong indeed. That's a Christian Nies just over to the left-hand side. There is a lot of riders here who have made the split from Team Milram.
Well, the missing rider is either Kadamuro or Patacchi, because we've accounted for Dembaka. He's in the second group. So it's only one that's missing. And so I've got a feeling that perhaps Patacchi is in this group.
Well, I haven't identified him properly, but the way they're riding, they certainly are feeling very confident with either Eric Zabul or Alessandro Patacchi. Another move scurrying off the front there. Another sprint point, somebody putting a few extra dollars into his back pocket. But that team on the front is certainly very dedicated, Phil, to making sure that there is no breakaway.
12 kilometers to go. Road nice and wide now. Milram got control of the front. They're going to try and take the sprinter, be it Zabul or Patacchi, to the line.
So that's Kortinovis on the front. He was the man who was in the breakaway just a little earlier. This is a good move here by Bert Roosums, trying to slip off the front and outfox the riders from Team Milram.
Well, Bert is not, he's had one win this year. He won the Knockera course race. So he gave Lotto one win.
It's a tough race as well in the early part of the season. You know, that just might be Alessandro Patacchi sitting on the wheel there of Eric Zabul. Zabul up there into fourth place.
Well, that's the way it should be. Zabul will be the last lead out for Patacchi. But Bert Roosens is another aging sight. Now, an awful lot of riders now heading into the mid-30s in the professional peloton. This one's 33.
Well, he'll be given a free hand here because of the fact that Tom Steels is in the second group at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. But Henk Vogel's being given a free ride by the team today to defend his own chances in a race where he finished second a couple of years ago.
Well, he won't be too happy at Bert then, or maybe he will. Bert softening up the others to try and chase him down and draw the attention away from Vogels. He's a good time trialist, second in the time trial championships at Belgium last year, and he's sitting on 55 kilometers an hour here.
55 kilometers an hour, that's 35 miles an hour. That's a pretty impressive performance after about 200 kilometers of racing. 11 kilometers to go. And these are difficult roads to survive on, though, Phil. They're long and straight until we get into the outskirts of Wevelgem, and that's when the road starts to zigzag left and right.
Well, this is turning out to be quite an interesting move here, because the boys from Milram are under pressure to try and keep this race going here. Kortinovis, who was in that breakaway, still sitting on the front, setting the pace.
There's Zabul. He's lying in fourth place. I think he's very happy with the move across to this team. This team has given him an awful lot of confidence. Sad to see that he had to ride out his career not on T-Mobile, the team that he turned professional for.
Yes, but he wouldn't have got the chances he's now going to get today. I think he is actually Marco Vella, I've just seen, just in front of Zabul, so they must be sitting in front of Patacchi, keeping out of trouble for the big burst to the line. Bert Roosums here. Still pulling away. 8 seconds is nothing, of course, but on this long straight approach to the line, you never know.
Well, they're just, I think, pegging him here for the moment as they go into the town of Geloo. And that's just on 10 kilometers, 6 miles of racing to go, and that's around about 12 minutes for this man to get himself to the finish line.
Well, he's nudged out another 2 seconds. He's up to 10 now.
Yeah, but there's an acceleration coming off the front end of the peloton. This looks like Fletcher, chased by Cancellara.
Well, Fletcher's is the big dark horse here, because he really wants to get that win, and he's strong and he's got good form.
Sad thing for him, though, there's a very organised team. Milram are chasing everybody down. Roozem's a little bit further up the road there, around about 200 metres in front, 11 seconds advantage for him. But you know, once this race gets itself organised in the last 5 kilometres, Phil, they're going to pick it up to 60 kilometres an hour, and I don't think he'll be able to hold on to that.
Well, this is a great piece of riding here by Bert Roosums. At least he's getting his sponsor on television, which is, even if he does get caught, he's hanging on to his 9 seconds. Milram getting themselves reorganised now. They brought the other two back. They're going down the line into their place. Just Roosums in front. There's the gap.
It's
right down that centre line of the road now.
Yes, he'll probably be using that centre line every now and again. He'll put his head down to make himself just a fraction more aerodynamic. Look at that, and look at the line. And that just rounds over the back and makes you go through the air just a little bit more easily. But as you can see, the top half of his body now starting to bob up and down. That's an indication that the legs are starting to give out. He's holding on to 9 seconds, but I think we're going to see a big charging main peloton if we just hold here for a second.
It's not going to be easy now, because only Milram are making the pace here, and nobody helping them, and they must be getting tired. They've been doing it for a long time, and Roosums is a good time trial champion. He was the champion a couple of years ago of Belgium. Took the silver medal last time out, and he had a pretty high finish in the World Time Trial Championship too, and he's 9th.
He's a big boy. As you see him get out of the saddle, and that was to try and pick the pace up. He's looking at his meter in front of him to try and keep himself up at 50-55 kilometers an hour. It's a very difficult thing to do, but he knows he has to build up 20-30 seconds if he's got to have any chance at all of winning this. But I don't believe that the main field will allow one man to survive off the front end of the group.
Well, he's moving a little bit crosswind there. It looks like Henk Vogel sitting there on the tail of Alessandro Patacchi. So they've got the man where they want him. They've got Marco Bello and Zabul just in front. They're trying to get Ali Jet down to the line, but it's going to be touch and go here because the team are beginning to get a bit tired, I think, and he's up to 10 seconds. This is an interesting move. It's not like a normal breakaway where they wouldn't have a chance, because it's one team versus one man now.
One team versus one man. Queuing up there also on the wheel of Alessandro Patacchi was, of course, Thor Hushovd, and Alan Davis wasn't too far away. But Henk Vogel's got himself the best position. We have a quick glimpse here of the main field going round that group. 10 seconds. He's still doing a brilliant ride, I have to say. Roosum's here, Phil, to hold on. And look at those guys taking the shotgun down the cycle path.
Ouch. And now we're on the countdown of fractions of a kilometre too, and it's up to 11 seconds. Roosum's here could be on the ride of his life. He's won 23 races in his career. I think this would go down as his biggest ever, though. It'll be a Belgian Classic, remember. He's finished placed in Kuurne Brussels-Kuurne last year. He's never had a result like this. Once finished second in the Tour of Belgium overall, which was a superb ride.
Big organisation on the front, though, for Team Milram. They've still got a large number of riders dedicating to bringing this race to the finish as one compact group. Looking further up, he's actually extended his advantage by a second. This is a brilliant ride by this man, and he may well just put the fox in the chicken coop.
The only trouble is that Milram, who do not seem to be getting control of the race to bring him back, will find some strange allies when we enter the last kilometre or so, 2 kilometres or so. And that he might get caught in the rush for the line, but that's all that can happen to him. I don't think the Milram boys have got the firepower. Look, they're looking at each other here. They haven't got the strength now. Zabul may have to come and do a bit of work himself. He's moved up to third wheel. The whole field snapping at their heels, letting them do it, hoping that they keep Roosums close enough for them to get him, but they won't help.
They really are on the rivet, these guys, but I can't believe that they're not in control. They are leaving him out there, I think, to stew, just waiting for the acceleration of the last 4 or 5 kilometres. But it's gone up again to 13 seconds. And there's a lot of riders now, Phil, starting to get a little bit nervous, queuing up onto the wheel of Alessandro Patacchi, thinking about whether or not Milram can do it. But they're not actually full on chasing here. They're using this as a lead out. There's Alan Davis over to the right-hand side. He's looking pretty comfortable too.
Little scurry from the back now as they all want to see the front into the last 5 kilometres of the race. There's 47 riders in this chase, but there's only 5 of them doing any work at all to try and catch this man. 13 seconds now. This is a desperate finish, but surely his sponsors are going to be pretty impressed by this ride today. Superb ride by Bert Roosums to hold them off, and at the moment, still nudging it further away. 5 kilometres to go, 3 miles to the line.
3 miles of racing left to go as he goes under the banner there indicating 5 kilometers. He's got a fraction of an advantage now, Phil, because the road starts to zigzag a little bit and it breaks up the organization at the front end of the group. But you can see Milram, and this guy on the front here is all over his machine, just trying to find a little bit more effort. I'm not sure if that is Georgie Hincapie back there. I just caught a glimpse of a Discovery Channel jersey.
Well, we didn't see him when we panned, but who knows? I mean, that's Christian Nice, I think, still doing the pacemaking on the front. Roosum's holding on to 13 seconds as we tick off the fractions of the kilometre. No time for thinking now, no time for looking backwards, just go for it. This is a whole team against one man, with everybody else just waiting for him to be caught to take on Pataki.
Well, they're all queuing up there. You can see the dark green jersey of Torhushoft. Philippe Gilbert is in this group as well. He's in about 8th or 9th position. Henk Vogels is happily there, just sitting on the tail of all the Milram riders. But now, for the first time, Phil, that gap is starting to come down. It's come from 13 seconds to 10 seconds. And I have to say, Bert Roosums now must be wondering whether or not he's done enough to survive.
Well, this is the swan song effort now by the German on the front here for Milram. And I think it's just about it. That's the legs have gone as he swings off to the left there. He shook his head just inside 4 kilometers to the finish now. And they're still close, but not close enough. 8 seconds, they're closing in at 4 kilometers. That's the banner on the road. Our GPS system indicating 3.8 for the leader. Superb ride, arguably the best ride I've ever seen Bert Roosums do here. If anybody deserves victory today, it is certainly this man for the De Weterman Lotto team. Terrific effort. They're on the rack from the sponsors after the Tour of Flanders. Although, as Paul said, Van Petegem, I thought, rode an excellent race to finish in 4th place. But they wanted the win, and it always hurts when Quickstep get the win instead, because they're great rival Belgian squads. 9 seconds in favour of Roosums. This could be a catch in sight of the line here. Then there'll be a real rush for the line. Roosum's on the top, the charge on the bottom. I think there's 4 riders left there firing on all cylinders for Milram. The last man will be Alijet, Alessandro Pataki. And here's a rider who is, again, starting off the season in a hurry. He's had 7 wins already. This is his 11th season as a professional, Pataki, but he never really got underway until a few years ago, and since then he's scored 114 victories. Well, that's not the sight he wants to see. The clock's gone off the screen, the bunch are right on his back wheel. He's not going to give up, but he knows now he hasn't got much chance. Determined as he is, though, he's gone again. Looking for the 2 kilometre banner. And they are trying now to catch him and not catch him, if you know what I mean, because they know if they catch him, there might be a reaction from the field that will ruin the sprinters again. So they want to just try and hold him there now until they can creep up on him the last 1,000 metres and swamp him in the race for the line. But Bert Roosums today, he's been the man of the race over these last few kilometres. Terrific effort. What's about 4 or 5 seconds, no more than that. Just up in the trees there. Looks a bit further, doesn't it, from the helicopter than it did from the cameras down below. Looking for the 2 kilometre arch over the road. Roosums must see it now. Can't be a lot of strength left in that man now. It's been a desperate show of defiance. He went at about 13 kilometres from the line. He's now inside 2 to go. That's the 2 kilometre banner. 1.8 for the leader again. Now they're not going to be able to contain themselves now. They're going to have to try and break up the Milram train here. Marco Velo, Eric Zabul, last man to go will be Alessandro Pataki. He just keeps looking over his shoulder there at 1.5 kilometres. He's going to see the banner for 1 kilometre to go. And the whole field are going to be biting. Look at that for a picture now. Bert Roosums knows he's close, but is he close enough? As there comes the first move off the front of the peloton now as they start to disrupt the sprinter patterns. 1.3 kilometres, we're looking for the kilometre kite. As they race towards the line, he's caught. Well, that was very, very sad for Roosums. He had a real chance there, I thought, at one time. But now it is Servaes Knaven who's having a go here. The former champion of Holland trying to get away from the field. And this is another cheeky move, and you never know, because Knaven has done this before in big races, and he's come up with the goods. And Servais Knaven may be getting near the end of his career. 35 years of age. He won a stage at Tirreno Adriatico over a year ago. Before that, he's only won a couple of races in the last 3 years. But look at that move, and surely Servais Knaven has just helped himself to Ghent Wevelgem here. He was 5th in this race back in 2003. That was an incredibly well taken move, and I'm not sure they've got the answer to this one. Servais Knaven has spoilt the sprinters. They didn't have control of that race. They never have had, in fact. They've been hunting one man all over the last 13 kilometres. They wiped him out just in time for another attack to go. That's why they didn't really want to catch him just when they did, because this is always the danger. But Knaven's legs, are they tiring? Here comes a reaction from the field as Knaven now comes up on the right as they try to mix it. That's Fletcher in there too, and here comes Cookie. Baden Cook has got his head down on the barriers. This will be a huge result for Cookie. Australia have never won this race, and Cook is trying to get on terms now. But Alessandro Patacchi, where is he? As Tor Hushoff comes in the centre of the screen. And in the rush for the line, it's going to be right on the line. And Hushoff, I think, has taken it, and so does he. Zabul is off to the left. Tor Hushoff has got the victory here in Ghent Wevelgem with a terrific sprint finish right on the line. For him, it's his 2nd win of the year. He was 5th in Ghent Wevelgem last year. Now he's gone 5 places better and becomes the first Norwegian ever, and indeed only the 2nd Scandinavian, to win the Ghent Wevelgem Classic. It's only taken 68 years. Well, he's looked sharp all day today, hasn't he? With tremendous rides over the hills. He was the first man, remember, on the climb itself, a first lap of the Kemmelberg. Can't believe it. That is a big result too for Crédit Agricole. Maybe the French don't win this race very often, but the French team is 2nd best in this, and so they've got a good victory here. There's the rush for the line, and he just takes it out there. Zabul's also in on the hunt, and the Gerolsteiner ride down there, I would think it's probably going to be somebody like Hausler, but we'll just check it out. There's Patacchi. May have been Patacchi, but I thought Zabul was closer than Patacchi. But we'll find out when the result comes up. Certainly Patacchi not looking very pleased with himself just there. Now this is it's the Gerolsteiner rider who's making the run at poor old Servais Knaven, but then look at the move by the rider in green as he comes up to the line. That might well be Patacchi taking it on with him, but I think it's Erik Zabul who's alongside him there. There's the confirmation of the 68th Ghent Wevelgem. Tor Hushoff of Norway, the first ever Norwegian to win. David Kopp of Germany in 2nd place, Patacchi and Pizzato for Italy. Then George Hincapie of the USA, Cancellara 6th. Bernard Eisel did well there to come in so far up after that long breakaway when we came on air. He got caught, and I didn't think he would stand the pace of the peloton, but he did.
Pretty tough race there, mate.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? It wasn't as tough as other years because they didn't ride real fast in the beginning, but they certainly turned it up in the final. But our team rode fantastic. Roosum's got caught with the K to go, and unfortunately I couldn't follow Patacchi for the sprint. So, hey,
what happened to Patacchi in the sprint there?
I don't know, but I think he ran out of teammates trying to chase our guy Roosum's, and they had one guy left with a K&a-half to go, and Pizzato went. Yeah, Zabul probably had to go too early, so I come over him. So.
Bit of a surprise to see him beat Patacchi?
Nah, he's a legend. He's a big, strong boy.
Paris-Roubaix next?
Yep. Very much looking forward to Sunday.
Good luck, mate. Tor, it's always good to get a big win, but when you win in front of some of the fastest sprinters in the world, like Alessandro Patacchi, it's a little bit sweeter.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's always better to beat maybe the fastest sprinter in the world, and it's my 2nd time I beat Patacchi, so I think it's a good start for me to see that I'm still getting a better sprinter, and it looks good for Tour de France as well.
Nice to win a big race like Ghent Wevelgem and get something under the belt before Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah, that's true. Now I have a lot of confidence before Paris-Roubaix Sunday, and
Yeah, last year I was 9th, and hope this year I'm getting even closer to the podium.
Well done, nice win.
Thank you.
Well, there are still plenty of young people here to follow in the wheel tracks of Tom Bonen, but today everybody followed in the wheel tracks of Thor Hushovd. Yes, the first Norwegian ever to win Ghent Wevelgem, but as he said, he is partially Belgian because he has a fan club here and he does a lot of racing here. I think particularly he cherishes this victory because it's the first ever by a man from his country. Hope you enjoyed the coverage. I must say, those two riders jumping away near the end, they really did spoil the day for Ali Jet, but he'll be back. And so will we. For Paul Sherwin, Phil Liggett saying goodbye.